All right, you should be good to go. If people want to clear the acknowledgement that's being recorded, we are all ready. Here you go.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking to you all about dual power and giving a little insight about who I am and who is IFR and what we do. And I'm going to be answering the question, what is dual power and how can we use the construct to give power back to the people?
Maybe not. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I junked it up. Hold on.
Should be at the bottom, right?
Oh, yeah, this one. Hey, there it is. All right.
Okay, so first I'm going to be talking about my activism background. Ever since I was young, I've always had the urge to want to help people. I was thrown into the medical field professions, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I can't even look at my doctor when they're like sticking a needle in my arm to give me a shot. I was like, that's not for me. However, during my fourth grade year, I was able to use my poetry as an outlet. And I soon started to learn that a lot of the things that I was feeling when it came to social justice issues and who I am and how I felt like I was different from a lot of people, I started to realize that maybe I had a calling in speaking out in activism. It wasn't until the Trump 2016 elections that I started to see myself wanting to do more. We've had a lot of social justice, we had a lot of discrimination and racism at my high school. I went to West Senior High School here in Iowa City, and that caused me and my peers to want to protest and fight back. We did sit-ins in schools, we did rallies outside of the schools, and we ended up protesting downtown. And we've noticed that we had a very big voice. We've seen a lot of people come out and want to help us, and we decided maybe we should do something with this. And we started the Students Against Discrimination and Hate organization called SOD, and we worked with CWJ, known as the Center for Workers' Justice. However, this organization was short-lived just because we all had to go to college, and so we all ended up going our separate ways. Okay, how Iowa Freedom Riders was started. First, I want you all to look at these names, and I want you guys to realize how important these names are. These are not the only names you all should be remembering right now. However, these are the names that caused me to be interested in IFR. First, I heard about Ahmaud Arbery. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and so this hit close to home. And then it wasn't until Yasin Mohammed, which is a close family friend of mine, who was gunned down by police due to mental health issues, that I realized like I needed to do more than just write poetry. I wanted to get out there. And when George Floyd was murdered, there was an opportunity to join a rally and downtown and start protesting and reading out my poetry as well. And I decided to take it. We ended up going to that rally, my sister and I, and then we went to Minneapolis with a lot of other people who also wanted to have their voice heard by the government, have their voice heard by the people. When we were in Minneapolis joining the protest, we saw a lot of very, very disturbing scenes. We had snipers on roofs. There was dogs that were released, hoses, water hoses as well that were used, being chased by the cops. Like it was a very scary situation, and that's when it first opened our eyes to what we were doing. Like this is real life. Like this is a real life situation. We're like at war in a way, and trying to have our voices heard as well. After we came back from the Minneapolis protest, we decided to continue to protest within Iowa City downtown just to make sure that we weren't like this story was not going away, that the city was going to do something about it. Sooner or later, we started to see we were having a lot more people coming out by the thousands, and we decided to start Iowa Freedom Riders. Okay, so first I'm gonna have 3 slides that are gonna show you all the list of demands we had for the summer. They're broken down into 3 parts. So first we have the demands for the Iowa City School District. I'll leave this up for like 3 minutes so people can kind of skim it and look at it so you all get a sense of what we were asking as soon as we started our organization. And then I'm going to move on to another list of demands that we had for the city council at the time. And then these are the demands for the state legislator and state governor. I just wanted you all to get a sense of what we were asking from the government, things that we really didn't see as a big deal at the time, I guess. We really wanted the government to showcase to us that they cared about social justice issues, they cared about Black lives, Black and brown people at the end of the day. And we've gotten to a sense of like a point within our organization where we realize the government does not intend to serve. And we say this based on a couple of things. First, I want to talk about the OIR report, which is a report that came out after we were tear gassed, not last June, but the June after, before that. And we didn't know who was to blame. We heard like ICPD was to blame, State Patrol was to blame, but no one took blame for anything. We didn't hear what they were gonna do. We didn't hear like who would be the one or who was calling the charge, who was taking the charge on these actions. We didn't know who was behind it. And it kind of played a sense of we didn't know where the government stood with us, if the government cared about us. And then when the OIR report came out, it was kind of like a slap in the face to us. It didn't really tell us what their next steps were going to be. It didn't tell us if they were going to continue. I mean, they were going to stop tear gassing citizens. Why tear gassing citizens is bad. Like nothing like that came out. So we felt like no one was listening to us. And then back to our demands, as you can see from our demands, we weren't really asking for anything other than basic human rights. And the city council said that they were going to look at it, but they didn't really do much for us. They kind of just like kept us to the side, didn't want to give us a seat at the table. And then when it came to the city council's Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was created, with our plans in with our plans in mind, they ended up pausing it, and we just did not understand why they didn't want to give us that power that we were seeking to help our community. And then back to the city manager and the governor, they reached out, but they didn't really do much for us. And then we saw the city manager later go on and release some, I think it was like police budget proposals that increased on the police budget, that gave more power to the police. And as we see from the governor, she's also released the police bill, which then gave more access and more power to the police. And we just thought that the government at that point of time did not really care to hear what we had to say and did not really stand with us. And that's why we say the government does not intend to serve. But this is not the first time that the government did not intend to serve. There's been many times throughout history, and until now, like we've seen, like the government does not really serve its community members, and its community members have to go out of their way to try and find other ways to solve their issues. And so this brings me towards dual power. And first I wanted to put up the definition of it. This is a definition IFR has come up with. We've seen a lot of definitions, but this really sounded very clear and concise to us. So I'm just going to read it out. The building of autonomous institutions, infrastructures, and spaces of power to counter institutions to the current ones that will provide services and goods cooperatively without the threat of violence and brutalization that existing social services impose. And so one example that I always go to is the Black Panther Party. So when they were building separate institutions, when we talk about separate institutions, we don't really mean something big and scary. It can be something as simple as building free lunch programs, free clinics, mutual aid, after school programs for kids. It's knowing that the government is not going to help out when it comes to certain communities, when it comes to certain aspects, certain needs, and the people will take it upon themselves and work with their community and rely on community resources instead of continuing to rely on the government except for money. And so what I have is like the PTRC is what we started after leaving the city's CCTRC. And so when we started our PTRC, we had two things in mind, which was mutual aid and a grievance space. So mutual aid is giving back to our community, which would be like free lunch programs, free clinics, community fridges. And then the grievance space would be a space where community members can come through and they can say, or they can give us their issues, and then we would give them a solution to it, or as a community, we would sit there and try to help each other out. So as you can see, like this gave us like the power that we needed to take back and give it back to our community instead of continuing to rely on a bigger power that wasn't helping at all. And I do have more to say on that, which is when we saw the way that the city council voted to dismantle the CCTRC and how they continued to harass and ignore the words of the people during public comment, we took it upon ourselves to build a solidarity construct, one that is politically alternative to moving past these institutions. We achieve this by re-educating our communities, teaching our BIPOC communities about their rights, creating media outlets by the people and for the people. We achieve this by having autonomous power spaces for our BIPOC communities for truth and solidarity issues and solutions for the people, by the people. We achieve this by making lists of demands and pressuring the government and corporate America into providing those funds to build such institutions. We need to mobilize and build a mass movement, including building survival foundations like food co-ops, reclaiming buildings for community cultural centers, and housing the poor and those who feel unsafe at home. We need to start at a local coalition against police and actively work to defund them. Yet this does not stop there. We will fight alongside the people, alongside local governments, unemployment, welfare, and those who oppress us. When we start to re-educate our communities, we start giving the voice, the power, and the space back to the people. This is when we will see true solidarity. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yay. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. I can see you read out. I'm actually going to stop the share. Are you okay with that, or do you want the slide still? Okay, I'm going to do that. I'll stop the recording here.